All right. Tonight we are going to be talking to John Stanisci. If I mispronounced your name, I'm sorry. You can tell me later. And Emma Kubert. They are currently kickstarting a young adult graphic novel called Foundlings, and I thought it looked like an interesting project when I wrote it up for the Comic Watch site, which I write for. So I thought I'd try, and they were nice enough to come on and talk to me about the Kickstarter. So without further ado, let me bring them both in, and we'll find out more about their project. Hey.
Hi.
Hey, Chad. Hi, Emma.
Hi, John.
So Chad, before we go further, you have to know something, that Emma and I have the same exact chair.
We do.
Which we did not know until recently. I look at her on video and I go, wow, something looks strange. You can't see it in the shot, but I have the exact same chair. We bought it at the same place. So.
Oh, I thought you were going to say at the same time. I was like, I didn't know you for that long.
No.
All right.
So, whoever wants to go first can, but like I was telling you guys earlier, the first question I like to kind of ask is if you remember the first comic or comic strip or, whatever version of comics that you kind of, first read, and what kind of got you hooked.
John, you
Emma?
go.
You want me to go? Okay, well, I'm just a little bit older than Emma, just a little, a smidge. But, well, it's a two-part answer, Chad. The first comic I can remember was a Spider-Man comic done by John Romita. It was the one with this character, the Crusher. But more significant than that was my first memory of anything comic book related was, and Chad, you may be familiar with this, there was a rock comic done in the early 70s, and John Romita, it was the one where it's like the white cover and Spider-Man's leaping out with the, like he's got like the web, and it was a rock comic. Yeah, and that was actually my father got me that, and I listened to it, and I could still actually quote from the record. I listened to it so many times, ingrained in my memory, and I remember that it was significant because my father, who was not an artist, he was a blue collar worker, just decided to take up painting, and he said, "I'm going to paint the cover." It was the first time I ever saw anybody draw in my life. I didn't understand what it was. So it impacted me in terms of getting me hooked on comics, but also it was the first time I started to think about, or just was exposed to somebody drawing in front of me.
So. Okay, is it my turn? It's
your turn.
Okay, my turn. All right. Well, I mean, I actually didn't really take to comic books when I was younger, but I took to more of the humorous and the more cartoony ones. Like we had stacks of like the book editions of Calvin and Hobbes that we would read at the dinner table. I would take out of the box of DC comics that my dad would bring home. I'd take out all the Cartoon Network ones and I'd read all the Powerpuff Girls. But that was really just more because I liked humor, I liked fun, and then when I got older, I think the first actual comic type thing, I guess, that really made an impact on me was reading my grandpa's graphic novel, Yassel. And it was mostly because it wasn't, it wasn't standard comics. There were no panel borders. It was in pencil on gray tone with highlights, and I just thought it was honestly one of the most beautiful stories that I've read, let alone saw. But then I actually didn't really get into comics until I was around 19 or 20 when I read a giant omnibus of Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti's Harley Quinn, and it was really the first time that I really saw like all of the things that I liked, which was like humor, strong female protagonist that wasn't, totally a hero, wasn't totally a villain, but was just having a good time in this wacky, serious world that is superheroes now. And I just thought it was something so amazing. I thought it was so fun. And that was exactly how I could see stories in my own head. So that kind of that clicked for me. I was like, oh wait, I can tell my version of stories which is similar to this, which I really enjoy.
Now, John, you've been working in comics for a while. What have do you remember your first project, and what have you done since that time?
Since my first assignment in comics?
Yeah. And what was your assignment?
Well, I'll tell you, I have an unusual story for how I got my first job, which is very, very early on. This is going back a long time. This is when Terry Cavanaugh and Kelly Corvisi were working at Marvel. Terry was an editor and Kelly was his assistant editor. I knew somebody who knew Kelly and introduced me to Kelly. And, I was just a kid and I said, oh, I want to draw comics and what do I got to do? And he said, this is before the internet, Emma. Okay, so feel free to, you can laugh. You can laugh.
I don't even know what that means.
Okay, it's all right. He said, why don't you give me a call this week? I'll send you a script. You'll do some pages and we'll take a look. Well, I called him up. He remembered me. He had to hard copy mail me. There was no email. An 8-page Hawkeye story. So I sat down and I struggled through it, but I drew the entire 8 pages. So I called Kelly back. I made an appointment, went up to Marvel Comics for the first time. I mean, I walked in and, all the art's on the walls and it was really exciting. And Kelly took me into this room and we put all the art on the table. And he said, this is pretty good. It's not bad. And I said, why don't you buy it? Why don't you publish it? And he said, excuse me. He said, well, I would, but we had Don Heck just drew it. And it was the strangest thing because just as he said that, this guy walks up behind Kelly and I. He leans over. He looks at the pages and he says, hey, Kelly, that looks an awful lot like the Hawkeye story that I wrote. The writer's name was Fabian Nicieza. He had written this story. Kelly said, yeah, but, and Fabian says, you guys were supposed to get Don Heck, but he never drew the book. And he says, you're kidding. I thought it came out. No, it never came out. Kelly grabs the pages. He goes into Terry's office. He comes out a minute later. It was like in a movie. He goes, kid, you just hit the jackpot. You walked in off the street. You sold a story. You're going to go be a backup in the Barry Windsor Smith Weapon X book. And that's how I got in. And I literally walked in off the street and sold my first story.
I think your entire life is a movie at this point. I think that's it. I can't even top that. That's a movie right there.
So that's how I got in. And then over the years, I really wasn't ready I wanted to pencil like everybody does. I wasn't ready to pencil, but I wound up meeting Klaus Janson. I became sort of his protege. He became my mentor. And I soon learned I had an ability to ink other people's work to a certain degree. So that's how the inking career started. And that went on for a lot of years. And then several years ago, I just decided it was time to stop inking for the most part, unless it's somebody special, and start penciling and inking all my own work.
Nice.
Except for Foundlings.
Yeah, my career is shorter than that. Just a little bit.
So Emma, what's your story? I know that you're relatively new to the industry, so kind of tell us about your story.
Well, I graduated from the Kubert School 2018. That can't be right. Yeah, that may be right. Feels like a lifetime since then. All right. No, but I mean, I really started out trying to hit the ground running. So as soon as I got to my 3rd year of school, I was like, I want to start getting work, because when I get out of school, I want to have work. So I was just kind of working hard. We had a lot of portfolio reviews, probably more by the end of 3rd year. And that's when I started getting a couple more calls. One was actually for DC Comics, and it was to do layouts for the young adult graphic novel Raven book. And so as I was going through them, I kind of realized that this was exactly the type of material that I really wanted to work on. I loved the young adult genre. I love Raven. She's one of my favorite Teen Titans. So working on that was just like right off the gate was honestly amazing. And to really do it from a standpoint where I'm purely just telling a story, like I was doing the layouts while Gabriel Piccolo was finishing it. And so it was just kind of something really special. So while I was working on it, I was like, okay, I want to be a penciler on like a young adult graphic novel. This is what I want to do. I want to actually draw like the books myself and work on my own personal style and really just hone in on my skills. So after that was done, I mean, I worked on some stuff for Dynamite, and then I was just trying to kind of work on my skills at this point. I was really honing in the craft, just sending my portfolio out everywhere. And in this day and age, it's kind of really impossible for people to break in, especially right off the gate like that. So it really took time to build more of an audience on my work. And then eventually, I mean, Rusty Glad and I, we created a pitch that was Inkblot, sent it off to the Image, and they really liked it. So that's kind of where the ball started to really roll from there. And then Foundlings.
Foundlings.
So yeah, let's talk about Foundlings now, because that's why you're here. So
let's talk about that.
We got here naturally.
So what is the story about, and how did you guys come to work together on it?
Okay, John, you say the first part. I'll say the second.
Say the first part. Okay, so well, let me share the personal part, which Chad, I'll share with you that I hadn't really shared with Emma and the team of Foundlings, because I am loath to talk about my personal life, but I feel like it's pertinent to the story, which is I was adopted, and I grew up in a family here in Queens, New York. For up until 2 years ago, I never knew where I came from. I never knew who my birth parents were, my ethnicity, anything. And so when I was really young, around the time that I told you the story about getting into Marvel, was about the time I knew someone, I had a friend whose wife was a nursing supervisor at the actual Foundling Hospital in New York City. And the Foundling Hospital in New York City is a place where children with emotional or physical differences, disabilities, whose parents either can't manage their care or don't want to, quite frankly, the children are left at the hospital. And many of these children grow up there at the hospital. They can't find a foster home because nobody wants them. And a lot of them don't even know who their families are. So even though I'm as they say, a temporarily able-bodied person, I emotionally connected to the thought of these kids. I always felt sort of like a foundling, like I never knew where I came from, but I wasn't wanted, and all this kind of personal thing that I had. So I emotionally connected, and I always had this idea in my head that I'd love to someday write a dystopian story where, the world flips upside down, and these kids who are like the unwanted of the earth become the only chance for its survival. So flash forward many years later, coronavirus hits. I live here in Forest Hills, Queens. You might hear some of the sirens going by because there's an uptick in the virus. When the lockdown happened, I thought, you know what? this might be the perfect time to pull this story out of the drawer. It's been sitting in the drawer in my head, really, and do something with this because it seems appropriate. It seems timely. I wanted the story to be timely but not political. So I wanted to make that distinction. So it was around this time that I thought, well, I don't think I'm the right artist for this. I don't have a particular predilection for young adult. Like, I have my own graphic novel that I've done called Life Death. It's a science fiction series, and there's going to be an announcement about that soon. But that's more my type of cup of tea. So it was around this time that Emma and I connected on LinkedIn. And I have to say that I knew of Emma. I knew she existed on the earth. I wasn't that familiar with her work. But when I saw her work, I mean, quite honestly, it was like ding, ding, ding. This is the perfect person to draw these characters, this story. This is it. I didn't know her. I just hoped I could pitch it to her. And I hope that she would say yes. So Emma, I'll let you go from there.
Well, basically, I was just trying to connect with people from the comic industry on LinkedIn.
So it wasn't me personally. It wasn't like me personally.
I wasn't picking you out personally.
It was like a general blanket. Right. Okay. All right. You just happened to catch me. All right. That's all right. All right.
No, I mean, at this time, I think I may have been working on Inkblot, but no one knew of it at that time. And I was looking for, more work to do. And this was kind of when the pandemic hit. And I was just like, oh my God, everything's dying, because that's how it felt. And I was just kind of trying to find a way to connect with more people in the comic industry. And as we all know, the comic industry is mostly freelance, and you can really do it from anywhere. But that kind of made it limited for me because I was breaking in, I was trying to find work, and it wasn't really happening. So one of my friends who was in the film industry suggested maybe you can just look on LinkedIn and see what's out there for you, because that's how she made connections. And I was like, okay, why not? So I started searching on LinkedIn, seeing people from the comic industry. I wasn't even looking for jobs per se. I was more just looking to connect with people and see what's out there, really. And John and I connected, and one day I just get a message where it's just like, I think your art's really great, and I think I'm trying to be a writer, and I really want to share my idea with you. And I'm like, okay. And I mean, I obviously looked up who John was to see, where he came from, what he was doing. And I saw that he was in the comics industry. He was also in the theater industry, which was really cool. And that kind of, it made it in my head that I was like, this guy, he knows stories. He knows like how the industry works as well. So he told me his idea, and I immediately fell in love with it. I really love the idea of like diversity in characters. And that was really what sold me on it, because that's something that I want to do for my career. I want to create stories and make characters that are diverse and different from what the norm is. So this was kind of a great opportunity for me to work on something really big that I think can really change something, but also have people enjoy, which is amazing.
So who are the main characters of this story?
So these are a group of kids. There's a sort of de facto leader named Sujong Kim, who is Korean American. She suffers with some emotional issues. We have Nija, who is blind. We have Becca, who is on the autistic spectrum. She communicates largely through her drawings and her sketchbook. We have Adrian, who's in the mask. He was abandoned as a child. His parents, this is from a true story that I found, that his parents literally stuffed him as an infant behind a radiator to die. They didn't want him, and his face is horribly disfigured, so he wears a mask to disguise it. And then there's Dwayne, who is a hemophiliac, who has to constantly be covered. I particularly loved the aspect of that character because, you know, you have 5 kids who all have these different issues that they're dealing with, but one, you know, when you're on the run and Russians are after you and you're trying to escape New York, a war-torn New York City, the last thing you really want is a kid who, if he falls down and gets cut, could bleed to death. And then, you know, it's a big problem. So those are the main characters. I will give a little spoiler. Not in the first issue, but along the adventure, they come across Spartacus, who is our beloved 3-legged cat. And there, you can see, if you scroll down, you see Spartacus. Emma and I, we both felt like it would be great to have sort of a foundling mascot, like.
Oh, you knew you wanted it to be a cat for me.
I'm a cat person too. I've got my baby here. So we thought that would be great, but the mascot, the cat, had to have, you know, an issue they were struggling with. So thus the 3-legged cat, and those are the heroes of the story.
But I think my favorite part about these characters is how John writes them. Is that they're not just written specifically to show people that are going through these challenges as well. They're written with very different personalities. They have great quips. They talk to each other. They're family. And that's the part that I really fell in love with, was that these kids, you know, they were abandoned, some at birth, some not, but they actually found each other in this hospital, and now they just created their own family out of who they are and where they are. And I thought it was really awesome. I thought it was really beautiful.
Well, I've always been fascinated, and I'll say this: I could never, and I wish I would have the chance, but I could never write a sort of Steven Spielberg kind of family movie, only because it's not that I don't like them; they're amazing. I just did not grow up in that environment. You know, I grew up the way that I did. And to be quite honest, you know, when I reached a certain age, like 11 or 12, I formed a band of brothers, and we all basically came from broken homes, some kind of tragic story, and we sort of raised each other. We were each other's family, and we dealt with everything with humor. So Foundlings, in a lot of ways, is me sort of reliving my childhood, my adolescence, in a fantasy scenario. And I'll be honest with you, Emma, you know, Emma knows this already, but my wife, who's in the other room, she's been saying all along, my wife, Susie, you know, John, you're telling your story. You're telling the story of you and the guys you guys raised each other on the streets of Queens, New York. And this is your story. I said, no, I don't see it. I don't see I don't see the connection, you know, but I do now. I do see it.
How can you not?
Yeah, I do see it. So that's the heart of the story, really.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Chad, let me just say that, you know, when Emma came on board, it's just been fantastic because, you know, she's captured everything about this that I could ever hope for. She's captured, you know, the heart of the kids. I mean, that's a great look at that. That's just the double-page spread of Times Square under the drama, the action scenes. She's like the perfect storyteller for this. And you know, when I asked her to do it, I hoped it would turn out well. It's turned out so far beyond well. It's just really, really fantastic. And honestly, I think, you know, we're just getting warmed up on this. I think as time goes on, we're melding more and more as a team, and I think it's just going to get better and better.
Definitely, I agree.
So
Emma, how long does it take you to do something like this?
Oh my God, something like this. Honestly, it depends. I mean, I do work pretty quickly, but most of the time I do have to tell myself to slow down on work. So, and especially with projects like Inkblot, like Foundlings, I want it to be the best possible work that I can do. So, I mean, that I can't tell you how long that double page spread took me. Maybe 2 days. I don't know, but I usually do a page a day, 2 pages a day, maybe 3 if I can do it. But Foundlings is something that I really want to take my time with, and it's important to me because when John writes, he writes in more of a plot form than just a standard like page 1, panel 1 script. So he really gives me a lot of leeway to make the scene exactly how I want to direct it. So as I'm drawing it, as I'm drawing the layouts, I'm not just thinking about, what John is saying. I'm thinking about the characters and how they react to all of this. I'm thinking of, the action, how we want to see it, how we want these kids to be portrayed, how we want the villain to be portrayed. It takes a lot of time to think about this stuff because it is really important to me to make sure that I am portraying this story correctly, if that makes sense. Like I want it to be as real as possible.
Well, I just want to say this particular double page spread is so cool to me, and all kidding aside, because when Emma and I were talking about this, we are well aware that we're walking the young adult line here of doing a young adult story, but it's not quite the Goonies. It is like in the realm of Stranger Things, and that the kids are put in
X-Men, like X-Men. It's like X-Men.
Yeah, we want the kids to be in a sort of dangerous situation where the action has impact and meaning. We don't want it to be overtly, gratuitously violent or anything like that. But this shot was so important because this is, there's a whole episode, the issue where they're escaping from the hospital and they come out and we see what's happening, that the Russians have invaded Manhattan. And there's these little pockets of resistance going on, but there's tanks in the streets and the city's on fire. And, I had it in my head what I saw, and it was like I was trying to communicate to Emma, but this was no small feat to perfectly capture it in the shot, in the drawing, and in the color. And Emma just nailed it. It's like, this is the book I hoped it would be when Emma begged to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Oh, yes, when I begged. Yes, of course, sure.
I mean, when Emma asked me to be, I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course.
No, but it really is.
I remember begging? No, but
honestly, it's a
yes.
It's a thrill for me when the pages come in, because it's like, oh my God, this is so cool. This is such a cool comic, So it's exciting.
Oh, this was one of the shots that I thought was stunning and really got my attention.
Yeah.
So, what do you have for people that as reward levels for people who back the project?
Emma?
Well, you can get the digital copy. You can get a enamel pin, which was really cool. I know a lot of people like to collect pins. I actually have my own pin collection over there. Maybe I'll pledge. I don't know. I'm kidding. Of course I will. But then there's the variant cover tier. I mean, there are so many different prizes that you can.
Well, hold on. I think let me jump in. There is a tier. I think it's for $250, and we've had 1 or 2 people already where at $250 you can get yourself drawn into the book at some point, which is pretty cool. I think there is a commission tier, right? You're doing commissions, Emma, right?
I think so. I should be doing commissions, so if
Somebody's
anyone wants,
yeah. And we have tiers with like prints, I think, of the cover, signed prints of the cover, right? Don't we have that?
yeah.
Emma, do we know our own Kickstarter page? I mean, maybe we don't know it that well.
I don't know it off the top of my head, to be quite honest. Yeah. I didn't memorize all the words, but
right.
But I do know that a lot of the stuff that you get on the Kickstarter it's really cool. It's really exciting. I think you guys will really like it. This is a story that I believe in, that John believes in, that the world should believe in. And you can get some cool stuff with it.
You get yourself drawn into the comic by Emma Kubert.
Exactly. I'd be happy to.
Now, do you hope this is an ongoing? Or is it like going to be like a 6-issue story arc, or are you just kind of worried about the first issue right now?
No, we have the entire. Well, let me answer it this way. I wrote basically the Bible treatment for what would amount to the first graphic novel, which is 6 issues worth of story. We can't really say too much. We are talking to publishers, and to be determined if it came together with a particular publisher. If they wanted to do individual issues, we could go that way. We could do the graphic novel route. And beyond what is already written and planned, I mean, we have the entire first graphic novel written in terms of the story. So Emma and I know exactly where the first book is going, and it's really cool. And I think the way I see it, Emma, and tell me that I have this wrong, but I think that we feel there's about at least 5 graphic novels here, or the equivalent amount of issues. That's about at least what we see for the story, right? Is that right?
Yes, that I remember you telling me that, and I'm like, cool, done. Sounds good.
So the thought for the Kickstarter was to at least fund the first issue, and get that into people's hands. Also, it just seems like during this pandemic that a lot of, with a freeze with a lot of publishers of taking on new projects, as we all have seen, a lot of creators have turned more to Kickstarter, to the direct audience. Mm-hmm. And we thought, we're so passionate and excited about this project, and we feel there is an audience for it. Let's just do a Kickstarter for the first issue. Let's announce it, and let's see where we go from there. So rather than wait until, hopefully next year publishers start taking projects again, let's just move on this.
Yeah. I think we were all in agreement on that. We really wanted to get the story out there and kind of gain an audience for it first. We saw just a lot of creators doing the same thing, so we figured that we would try it too. And I'm excited for it. And a lot of people who see Foundlings, they seem so excited for it. They're here for the diversity. They're here for the action. And I think it's a great story. If you see it, I think you'd like it. So,
was there anything that maybe I didn't ask you about, you wanted to say about the project?
John?
I don't think so. I mean, it's I don't think so. Emma, do you feel there's anything we haven't covered?
No, I think we covered most of it. I mean, I can't think of anything. Foundlings is Foundlings. Yeah.
Well, I will share with you, Chad, while we're here. There's been a few things coming together, and we'd be happy to keep you posted. That Emma and I are talking to a number of groups that have charitable organizations that either work with or help kids with special needs, and that we're setting up a couple of live events where Emma and I will be talking directly to the kids. They've been told about Foundlings, that they're basically the heroes of this story. So there's a lot of excitement around that, and we're trying to, we think we have one lined up for the end of October, a second one lined up for first week in November. We don't have a confirmation, so I can't quite but I think we'll have a confirmation in the next few days on both. And I think it's something, I mean, Emma, you could speak to it too, but it's something we're very excited about. We're telling this story about a certain, group of kids, and we want to talk to those kids. We want those kids to directly have contact with us and the comic.
I want them to see this comic. I want people to see the characters that John has written, that I drew. I don't know. I just think this is such a great story that I think everyone would enjoy, but I think it's so important to represent everyone in stories, not nowadays, but I think just forever. Just because I know when I was younger, I really didn't take to comics just because I didn't really see anything that I related to. And you could imagine how many other children feel that way when they look at a comic book. So I think that's what's so important, is to create comics for children and create comics for all kinds of children. And this is really a story that I really believe in. So, yeah.
Can I tell you, I'll tell you what, if we have one more second, I'll tell you one last thing, Chad. Well, the other piece of the story, the plot, is it all starts that Russian scientists find these ancient seeds buried beneath the permafrost in northern Siberia, and they grow the seeds, and the seeds are still alive after being under the ground for over 30,000 years, and they don't understand why the seeds are still alive. And they grow the seeds into plants, and they extract a toxic element that they make into a weaponized virus. And that's sort of the catalyst for the invasion of America. They release the virus in pockets of the country. People are dying, and the Russians invade. The power grid goes down. The government goes down, goes dark. And there's only like these small pockets of American resistance. Turns out these foundling kids have a complete immunity to the virus. They're the only ones. And so there's experiments being done on these kids with the vaccine. It's not working. The Russians find the foundlings, and the foundlings grab the remaining seeds that are left, and they go on the run. And what's really, I find very interesting, is everything I write, no matter if it's, I write for the theater, I write TV scripts, I write comics. I always try to find, even in the most fictional stories, something true that, you can frame the story around. And there was a story I found this summer that scientists in Russia actually did find these 32,000-year-old seeds under the ice. It was true. I said, wow, this is a great catalyst for foundlings. And what was really interesting to me is they cannot explain why the seeds are still, as they call them, active. They're still alive. So I thought, well, that's a great catalyst for foundlings. So as the kids are on the run, these seeds, whatever their origin is, it starts, they start having powers. They don't understand it. They don't know how to deal with it. So that's a whole other dynamic to the story that I think is very cool.
Nice. So I'll give you guys, a chance to make a final pitch, and if you want to include, what you're working on now and where social media links, then feel free to do so. And I'll definitely include a link to the Kickstarter and links to your social media in the show notes.
Awesome. Go ahead. You can go first.
Foundlings is a great story.
By the way, did you mention Foundlings tonight? Did we talk about that? I don't think we got to it.
Will enjoy it. I'm also working on Inkblot for Image Comics simultaneously. My social media is Emma Kubert everywhere. And, thank you for having us. Yeah.
I'll say the same. What's really exciting about where comics is right now is that there's never been a better time to do creator-owned work. And this is the time to do it. So it's exciting to have this project with Emma. we're talking about doing others together. Foundlings is great. Please go make your pledge. I think we're $85 away from hitting the halfway point. I have another series. I released a graphic novel called Life Death, and I really shouldn't announce this, but I'll announce that I'm working on the next book, but I haven't announced it yet. So it's just between us, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm doing a lot of writing of TV scripts and that kind of thing. But my social media is just like Emma's, only it's John Stanisci everywhere. It's John Stanisci at John Stanisci on Instagram, Twitter, John Stanisci on Facebook, johnstanisci.com. And that's it. So thank you for having us, Chad.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you guys for taking the time this evening to talk, and I brought up the wrong screen. Let me give me 1 second. Let's see. Professionalism here.
Oh, yes.
It's all good. It's all good.
And we did it again.
I do it all the time.
I want to thank you guys for taking the time, and good luck on the Kickstarter. And definitely let me know if you have anything coming up that you'd like to get the word out about, and I'd be glad to help you. And maybe you guys can come back for when you guys get ready to do the next issue.
Absolutely, we'd love to come back.
All right. Well, stay safe and stay healthy. And
you too.
Look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so much, Chad.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.